Today is the no, actually it's yesterday, the 10th anniversary of the Nintendo 3DS. Let's talk about that console. What do you think about it? Oh man, so the 3DS is so important to me as a console because it's actually the first console that we own. That is the console is basically still alive because we've had the Game Boy Advance, we've had the Game Boy Color, Game Boy, all these things, PlayStation 1 and the DS and the PSP. We got those when they were already at the end of the life cycle of the portable console. So for the 3DS, even though we didn't get it at launch, we did get it when it was still alive. Nintendo was still supporting it. Games were still coming out for it. So it's the first time that we were within the lifetime of the console. So it's very cool. I know. Yeah, tell me about it. So you remember, like, we were riding this MRT, right? We were still very happy with our PSP, with our Nintendo DS, the dual screen. We're still playing with like Mario Kart DS and all these things. And then there are people already on the MRT that owns the 3DS, and we were really very jealous. But then fortunately we kept on looking like the carousel. I believe it was still OLX at that time. And then we saw this guy. Basically, we met in if you remember, in the Gateway Mall, where he sold his the original Nintendo 3DS XL for like around I believe we got it for like 6,000 or 7,000 pesos. And then on the box, it came with the box, it was even still under warranty. He bought it actually for 11K during that time. So tell me about the pricing of the Nintendo 3DS. Do you think it was fine? Oh yeah, man, I remember this. I believe it might have been a 7,000. Yeah, we met up, we were so excited. We met up like, I think right after we were teaching back then at the National Institute of Physics. I think just right after class, we went and met this guy. It might have been 7,000. But did you know, this is a funny story, because when the the 3DS, sorry, actually launched, it launched for $250, which is insane, because that was like the launch price of the Wii back when it was released. And the Wii is a home console, so people were hesitant trying to invest that kind of amount of money on a handheld system, and so it basically flopped when the 3DS was first announced. So like I said, initially it was released in Japan February 26, 2011, which makes it yesterday the 10-year anniversary. But worldwide, in Europe and US, I believe it was released like March, a month later. But yeah, it released for $250, and on top of that, it was expensive. But then there were no like heavy hitter first party that were released for it. What were the games that were out like on the release date? It was like Street Fighter 4 was, I believe, the most compelling one, but the rest is like Super Monkey Ball. You have like, I don't know, Ghost Recon. You have this I believe there might have been the flight simulator thing. If I forgot what it's called, but the one where you fly around. But yeah, it wasn't so compelling. There were no Zeldas, there were no Marios, there were no first party titles, and so people were confused. Like, for example, like the release window of the Nintendo Switch, where it got day one, it got like a Breath of the Wild. Nintendo 3DS didn't have that, and so initially it was like a fluff. Yeah, I've definitely heard of this, man. And if in fact, like, they like, I believe 4 months in, right? Like, it was released around February, March, depending on where you are. I believe around July, right? They basically cut the price to $169, $170, and yeah, during the time they were basically losing a profit when they were selling a 3DS at that price, because they really planned it to be $250. But then, yeah, the price became $169 afterwards. And then people who bought it earlier, like 4 months earlier, they were like given this 10 NES games, the Ambassador games, and then I believe 10 pieces of GBA games. But yeah, like the how do you say this? The Nintendo 3DS wasn't very good in the launch. And in fact, the late president, rest in peace, Mr. Satoru Iwata, he even he took a 50% salary cut in his salary. 50%, man, it's insane. So that the Nintendo wouldn't be laying off some of their employees because they were selling the Nintendo 3DS after that. But man, after this price cut $169, and then I think later on, games started arriving. Metal Gear Solid 3D. You have the remake of the Ocarina of Time, and then eventually in the next year, the heavy hitters. Super Mario 3D Land, Mario Kart 7. I believe that's a time when basically the Nintendo 3DS started on this successful trajectory. Yeah, man. Like you said, Mario Kart 7, Super Mario 3D Land. These should have been the release titles. If this was released, we would have been compelled as well to get the 3DS on launch, but we didn't because like you mentioned, there were no compelling titles to get in the launch window. But you remember the game that came out that actually was that compelled us to buy the 3DS was our favorite Resident Evil Revelations, because we really love the Resident Evil franchise. It's the reason why we bought a PlayStation 2, you remember, because we wanted to play Resident Evil 4. It's the reason why we basically bought a new laptop on top of the old one we were using when we were taking our MS Physics on the transition to PhD. Remember, we obtained a new laptop, and one of the main reasons is because we can't use the old one anymore. The main reason is we wanted to play Resident Evil 5, right? And of course, when the Resident Evil Revelations came out for the Nintendo 3DS, then that's when we were excited. That's when we began, looking for secondhand and stuff. And I believe, a year later, I believe that's when the Resident Evil Revelations came out within the lifetime of the 3DS. And also, I think that was also the time when only a year later they made like a new improved Nintendo 3DS model. That's basically the first one that we got, right? The Nintendo 3DS XL with a Mario sticker. You remember? I believe we even made a Facebook video on it. We should link it somewhere, or we should upload it in YouTube sometime. But yeah, it's an old video that we got, the unboxing of the Nintendo 3DS XL. So we didn't get it on launch, but we got it pretty early within the 3DS lifetime, which is good. And then from then on, man, I believe the 3DS really gained momentum, and then all these hard hitting releases and so on. Oh yeah, Resident Evil Revelations, man, the memories. Speaking of, I got it right here. Let's show it to the audience. Resident Evil Revelations for the 3DS. But you're right, this is an amazing game, and I believe the next game that we got right after was because we want something that was arcadey, because Resident Evil, aside from the raid mode, it's very immersive, very story driven. So we want something that is like pick up and play. So we basically picked out right away. You remember a brand new Super Street Fighter 4, and I remember it having the cart. It has like a very thick manual during that time, something that they don't do anymore, outside of like limited game releases. But right now, if you buy like AAA games, the manual is gone. We used to scan this manual. It's very cool to read them. But yeah, speaking of, let's show to the audience what were, before we dive into the softwares that basically sold the units. What were the units available? So what we have here is, I think we left our new 3DS XL. I believe it's in our office in NIP. But what we have here, right? So the one I showed is a new 3DS regular, which is with the one that featured interchangeable faceplates. I believe we got this in Amazon, via last, I believe, August 2019 or September or around that time, like the later half of 2019. It's our like dream console because of the changeable faceplates. And again, we wanted the regular that is colored black, not just the white. And because we really wanted to mod it with the PSP, circle, the how do you call this, the pad here, the analog knob, the one on the right side that doesn't function very well unless you replace it with a PSP knob. But yeah, anyway, let's go over this. I believe that the initial release was the new 3DS, right? This is the original color when the 3DS was released, and one of the selling points was, of course, the 3D feature. If you remember, when you slide this and then you do the 3D, it was like you have to be very stable in order to maintain the 3D. But yeah, this is like the exact color of the release one. There was like, I believe, a black, some purple. Eventually there were like other colors, like let me get something very quick here. I believe eventually there were like it came in white, it came in like red and all these things. We have a pink here as well. We have a pink model right here, which is a very cool model. But yeah, and then after that, like you mentioned, just 1 year, they released the new no, not new, the regular, the old 3DS XL, with a bigger screen. And yeah, I mean, like, look at that screen difference, man. The difference between a regular and the XL, it's insane. So, and also the thing is, the original 3DS, it had like a relatively low battery life, and so you remember like there are like we had like this Nyko battery pack that came from Kirby Pajarillo. Shout outs to the Techno friends. We'll talk about those later. That you basically take the plate off and then you replace the battery. But one of the selling points of the XL, if you remember, is aside from having a very huge screen, it has also a huge battery life. And then eventually, again, they released very weirdly. They noticed that people weren't using the 2DS the 3D functionality at all. So they also introduced the 2DS models. So it has no 3D functionality. It has like it is only mono if you use the external speaker. But overall, it's a pretty solid build. It's like marketed for kids, and if you're basically, if you're not using the 3D, you can use this. And then finally, like you said, we left the new 3DS XL back in the Philippines, but we have right here a new 2DS XL as well. Basically, the last of the Nintendo line. So you see the analog hub here that is unmodded without the. It's basically this line of consoles. Just this is the new 3DS regular, but here we modded the like you mentioned the PSB knob, and then the in here this is unmodded, but basically our fiance has our Minecraft edition of a new 2DS model. But this also very good if you want the power of the new version, but then you don't want the analog knob. But can you comment about these different models? Which you think is our preference, and what do you like about them? Well, each basically have their own merits, because for example, the regular 3DS right here, it has that the advantage of having a tinier screen is that since you have the same resolution, if you go to the XL, then the image will be like enlarged, and so it wouldn't look as crisp. The contrast wouldn't look as good. So the nice thing on the entire 3DS line, this has the tiniest screen. Even the regular one, which is a smaller variant of the new versions, it's the screen of this one is a bit bigger than this, the small one, if you recall. So even here you still get a bit of a bigger screen. So this has a very sharp looking stuff. But of course, you mentioned our dream console is of course this one. This is our daily driver if we want to get our 3DS fixed, because sometimes we still do want to enjoy the 3D capabilities of the 3DS line. But yeah, this was if you notice, this was charging there a while ago, like in my previous cut of the video, if you notice as well. But in here we're also enjoying this lately, right? It's so novel, it's so new that the buttons are found on the top screen, because usually all the foldable models, the buttons are aligned with the lower screen, and so like there's like a bit of a weight on top. Like like this one is more comfortable. They should have like released instead of a foldable new 2DS XL, they should have released a slab model as well with a new 3DS power. Unfortunately, they don't do that. So if this is your like preferred console, you're stuck with the old model. But man, the build of this one is like we've been playing here. You mentioned yesterday in our post the Chronicles. We're now playing here Bravely Default, which is how much harder than we can remember. But you see here, it's very comfortable, man. Like your keys are on the top and so on. And yeah, so basically these are our daily drivers, the new 3DS regular, and then the 2DS, the old model, which we basically love. And of course, for those who are curious to know, this is also the last model, you remember, that we obtained in the 3DS line. So we're now complete in the 3DS line. We have the 6, the old regular, the first release, and then the XL, which you showed the blue one, the first one that we got, and then this one, the 2DS, so that's the third, and the fourth is the new 3DS XL, which, like you mentioned, is we left back in National Institute of Physics. It's in our office. And then you have this one, which is the new 3DS regular, and then finally the new 2DS XL, the one you showed with no analog knob. Yeah, I know, I love the 2DS as well, but the glare on your 2DS video, man, is insane. You adjust your lighting or something, you're insane. But yeah, so let's talk about the social. So basically we're gonna talk about after this the social aspects of 3DS. Eventually we'll talk about our top 10 3DS games of all time, our favorite, and then where does the 3DS fall in the scheme of handhelds, because we really love handhelds. We're into consoles that do not need a television. We'll talk also a lot about that, why we prefer it that way. But yeah, and then eventually we'll also talk about before the top 10 we'll talk about some of the highlights. But let's talk about the social aspect of the 3DS, because if you remember, the 3DS, which I hope they really bring on the Nintendo Switch, it has the Street Pass Mi Plaza, right? So this is the Street Pass Mi Plaza. If you recall, what happens is that so you're walking around, right, with your 3DS, and then if you have a friend or even a stranger who has their 3DS turned on, so basically you Street Pass, you have like a me, you have a representation of yourself. You remember our in-game me is A1, also has a long hair and these exact glasses with a beard. It looks like us, but yeah. So that particular avatar goes to the 3DS of the other guy, and then there are some games that utilizes this. It's so awesome, man. Like the social aspect. So like there are also this how do you say this, the steps, the one that the play coins, right? Like it's like a pedometer, and then you're earning like coins up to 300, I believe, the maximum, and then there are in-game mechanics that utilizes this coins is very insane. But yeah, let's talk about the Street Pass. Like we have this group we call the Techno Friends. So I believe, yeah, that's also, and we call this meetups, we call this SP, even though that term is dead currently because there's no more Street Pass on the Nintendo Switch. At least they should still have that, but unfortunately not. So but in the Nintendo Switch, Street Pass was one of the bigger selling points. So tell me about this Friday meetings that we have with a bunch of friends that people we come to know over the years. So tell me about this meetup. What do you do there? Oh man, this is exciting because you remember we were looking for we were able to buy a Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, a second-hand cart. We were like enjoying it on the PSP, but we wanted something that is more modern, that is more because by that time a few people are already playing on PSP, and the PSP Monster Hunter, I believe Freedom Unite was our introduction to the Monster Hunter series. But we got the Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and then we wanted help hunting these different monsters, and so it began with this group in Trinoma. So before that, we were going to like I forgot the name of this tea house, but we were going there, as well as Trinoma. There's like a coffee bean there, and I believe the group is called the Trinoma Nyakers. So based on the Nyan character from the Monster Hunter series. But yeah, we used to hunt with these people, and then but you remember it was like a bit far, right? And the meeting time was like in the middle of the week, which was hard for us during that time, because you remember we had like 7 a.m. classes when you're like we were like a bit early in our career as an instructor in the National Institute of Physics, and so we had 7 a.m. classes, so we couldn't, some of the schedules were like in the middle of the week, sometimes like it was like Wednesday, so we couldn't like enjoy it up to the late into the night. But then we found these other groups in that meets in Coffee Bean in Techno Hub Ayala Land, right? And their schedule was convenient because it was a Friday afternoon, basically after work, and we stayed like in the Coffee Bean all the way throughout the night, man. So we met these people. Initially we played with the Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Basically these guys introduced us to the competitive scene of Pokemon. So the first guys that we met there was like a Kay, I remember, and then you have a Ray, and then I believe Majed was already there, if you remember. And then they were like, we were still playing Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. We basically finished Pokemon X, which was we'll talk about that later when we do a game highlights. But yeah, I mean, we were so confused why these guys were so into Pokemon, and then you just wanted to hunt with a Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, but then eventually we were beaten by the VGC bug. But yeah, shoutouts to these people, like I believe Kay, Ray, Majed, and then eventually you have Busurdel, you have Kaze, Boss Alec, and then all these other people that we will eventually meet. So right now, I believe in the middle of the pandemic, they're not meeting anymore, but hopefully in the future we'll meet again this time with our Nintendo Switch instead of the Nintendo 3DS. But yeah, I believe one of the founding members of that was Kay, John Kevin. I'm not sure if we don't basically see him anymore do you see him in the in Facebook outlets or social media stuff? Yeah, man, no, I don't see him anymore. Which is insane, because you remember, when the Super Smash came out for the 3DS, he was like one of those guys that was so addicted. Like he goes there early, and then he goes to the he's like one of those guys that you wouldn't think would give up the video game hobby. Like he was like during the Smash era and then the VGC, he was like so addicted into the Pokemon scene. Like he would like do Smash a lot. Like even when he was still, I believe, he was still college during that time, he would be like, Smash practice after lunch and all these things. Yeah, he was very addicted. Like you wouldn't expect that kind of addiction to waver later on. But unfortunately, I don't think. Do you think he still plays video game? Like I believe, hopefully, it doesn't happen to us. In the future. Like I don't see ourselves giving up the video game hobby. Hopefully not, man. Like I believe yeah, but we really can't tell because like this guy Khei, he was so addicted, but then eventually he gave up. Yeah, hopefully he comes back in the future, but I don't think he has a Nintendo Switch. You remember his mother was like a gamer, right? No, I know, like he would mention that they have this, the Japanese how do you call this model, and then they would like if there's like a new Monster Hunter release, they're like, my mother has that copy. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know what happened to him, but yeah, you want to shout out like some of the other techno friends that we forget, like from the initial names that I got on top of my head. Sure, for sure, yeah. For who are the other ones you didn't mention? So we have like a Boss Alec, he's a lawyer, and then you have a Kaze, Kirby, who's like an awesome video editor, and then you have Bryle, you have Nine, and he's now his wife. I forgot her name. No, Nine was the wife, and then this is Boss Edge. You have Team. You have Bryle, Martin, basically, and then who else are we missing? We have Boss Alan. Over the years, Boss Ian. Over the years, people they come and go, and then of course we don't forget Ron. The quiet guy who until now I believe is also still into video games. Yeah, but yeah, we do miss that beat up. Hopefully when we come back, we still have that. But now moving into the segment, so. What you recall what games were huge aside from Monster Hunter and the usual Pokemon? What other games were you playing? Were we playing? Oh man, there were a bunch of stuff. Like I remember there was a time when John Kevin sold his Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. No, it was already Monster Hunter 4U Ultimate when it's already it's already like he already mastered a lot of it, and then he sold it, and then he went for like LBX, Little Butlers X or something like that, the tiny robot thing. And yeah, he was basically the only one who was playing that, and maybe that's the reason why he went out. Oh, we forgot to shout out, of course, Boss Hilbert, who is currently in the US. He also usually comes there, but he's a really big Monster Hunter fan as well, an expert Monster Hunter player. We usually play with him, online if you like in Paladins and all these things. But we also used to play with him online when the online component was introduced in the Monster Hunter 4U for Ultimate. But yeah, other than these usual things, I believe we also played like something like Fantasy Life. You remember there was like one woman who came like for only one time. Like when you went, she wanted to play. I believe her name was Lod. She wanted to play like a Fantasy Life, and then you busted one of the loot that we got, and then afterwards she never came back. Yeah, that was funny. And then yeah, I can't remember what the other games we usually play. It's always usually Pokemon, and then a bunch of Monster Hunter, and of course Smash was also big when the Smash for the 3DS came out. We couldn't believe that this thing could be played on the handheld, so we had a lot of those. Yeah, very good memories, man. Yeah, very very nice. I will always treasure these memories forever. Yeah, me too, man. I mean, yeah. And also, I look forward to going back to that place, and order some coffee. You remember, we also forgot to mention Boss JM. We forgot to shout him out, John Mark, who was also big into Pokemon. And also Boss Edwin, of course. These two guys, we remember these two guys because they usually criticize you if you buy the coffee, the expensive, like hot, you usually get, we really love that, the cold chocolate. But they're like Boss Edwin and Boss JM. They're like, I wouldn't buy something like that. Like, that's so expensive. Like, that's for rich people. Of course, they don't know this. We're not rich people. We come from poverty. We even came from poorer family than these guys. But they don't get that. The reason why we're paying for this is first because we have a decent job from the National Institute of Physics. Some of the other guys from the group, they're still in college during that time. So we had to stand up and take the responsibility to pay for the coffee. And of course, if we don't buy those coffee men from the coffee bin, we won't have any place to play. Like the reason why we're paying those coffee is so that we have the space. I don't get why like Boss Edwin and Boss JM were so against us buying this coffee. They're like, it's like against their life principles. Oh yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. Cool people anyway. JM, who we once beat on or are using our Team Marvin, you remember, in Pokemon, and Boss Edwin, who's a very insane classic gamer, and I believe he's also a very good in SNK versus Capcom. I believe he kicked Boss Ian's ass playing that game. But yeah, these guys don't think. Yeah, we buy, of course, we buy the chocolate so that we have a place to stay, because otherwise, coffee bean bean employees, they will kick you out if you don't buy anything. You just stay on the table with nothing, So we took it upon ourselves to buy the coffee, for the group so that we can stay there until the wee hours of midnight, basically, Yeah, I know, man. But anyway, yeah, let's move on. So some of quick gaming highlights that we have, before we even dive into the our greatest 3DS games of all time. So you have, the 3DS has an insane library. Currently in this particular our daily driver 3DS, we'll have over like 100 games here. We won't like talk about everything, but you have, this 3D remakes of classic games like Outrun, Fantasy Zone, very insane. You can play like 6 Phoenix Wright games in there, the original trilogy. You have the Apollo Justice, you have the Dual Destinies, and then you also have the Spirit of Justice. Outside, the how do you call this, Phoenix Wright versus Ace Attorney. And no, Phoenix Wright versus Ace Attorney, that's wrong. Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, this is what I meant. And yeah, like we'll talk about that later as well. You have Animal Crossing, man. You didn't talk about this, Animal Crossing. Can you talk about this game? Man, you're right. Give me that. Yeah, Animal Crossing, you're right. Like, Animal Crossing is like, the thing is like my fiance, our fiance basically, because we're the same person. But anyway, yeah, that's too meta, that's breaking the fourth wall. But anyway, yeah, Animal Crossing, so the fiance loved this game. She has her own 3DS, and there was like a point where we were so addicted about this series right here. You just collect in a farm. We have Animal Crossing on the Switch, but we haven't played it yet because we still have so much fun on the Animal Crossing on the 3DS. Yeah, it's really insane. But yeah, some of the other games here I show. Let me scan as well. So you have here some Art Academy stuff. So you have from Disney. You have some from Pokemon. Man, the Box Boy series, the insane puzzle series that also came out on the 3DS. Of course, we have the insane Bravely Default. I'm not sure if you can see it very well because of the glare, but we talked about it in depth in our Postdoc Chronicles yesterday, so we skip that. Of course, you have classics like Cave Story, older titles like Captain Toad. You have some Picross in here. You have the Pushmo, Crashmo, and the other one Pulmo or something. Stretchmo, not Pulmo. There's no such thing. Stretchmo games are also there, and then. Man, Dragon Quest like 7 and 8 are there. There's like a Donkey Kong on the 3DS. There's a Detective Pikachu. There's a Dead or Alive. There's a Dragon Ball fighting game. It's insane. The Drillion series was on here. And then we have the Etrian Odyssey, of course. We won't forget the insane dungeon crawlers. And then in this letter E, we also have this game EX Troopers. Can you talk about this game? Give me because there's no glare here. So yeah, EX Troopers, I believe it can be seen now. This like a Japan only game. It's an insane third person shooter game. With if you have a circle stick, the controls are really very nice. Reminds us of Borderlands and Monster Hunter combined. There's like a pretty decent. It's like the English is not that good, but it's playable. Pretty decent English subtitles and stuff. But man, of course, we shouldn't forget about the Fire Emblem series, Fire Emblem Fates, you have Fire Emblem Awakening, you have Fire Emblem Echoes, and of course we also got Fire Emblem Warriors. And then we go now. So if you notice, we're doing this alphabetically. Man, you remember the Gunman Clive series, the one with the 2D game that looks like Mega Man with the drawing and stuff. We have a bunch of Harvest Moon, some excellent ones like A New Beginning, and some later on when how do you say this, Natsume and Exceed, when they divided. You remember they have this they created this new series called The Story of Seasons, which are also on the 3DS as well. Yeah. So you have here Hyrule Warriors. You have you have the Inazuma series. You have, of course, Ironfall, which is the favorite of our friend Kirby. I don't know if he still plays this, but he really loves this, shooting games. And then you have a bunch of indies. Man, Kirby was really flourishing on the 3DS. So you had 3, aside from, I won't mention, the Party Deluxe and the Team, all these things, the outside party games. I'll mention the main series that came out. So you have Triple Deluxe, Kirby Triple Deluxe. You have Kirby Planet Robobot, which is insane. And then you have Kirby Extra Epic Yarn, okay? And then you have things like Layton's Mystery Journey, Layton's daughter. And then you have things like RPGs like the Lord of Magna. You have 2 Luigi's Mansion came out here, which is a must play before you play the 3 on the Switch. You can play the 2 original games, the original GameCube one and the how do you say this, the sequel on the which is only if you recall, is only, how do you say this, exclusive on the 3DS. And now we go to letter M, which is the starting letter of our name. So tell us about this. Oh, come on, man. You know what's on the letter M? It's the Mario game. So you have like the Mario RPGs. You have like Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. You had the remix like from the DS, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. You have things like Mario and Luigi Dream Team, I think it came out on the year of Luigi, which basically focuses a lot on Luigi. It's still cool. Mario and the Luigi Superstar Saga, the remake of the insane, one of our favorite GBA games, of course. We have the Mario Golf, not that good because it doesn't have RPG. Mario Kart 7, like we mentioned earlier. You have a bunch of Mario Party games, Mario Party Island Tour, Mario Party Star Rush, Mario Party, the top 100. You have a Mario Sports Superstars, which a bunch of sports games, which also like a Mario Party. We also have a Mario Tennis Open, not as good as the one on the GBA because that has, you know, the RPG elements. We have a Mario versus Donkey Kong Tipping Stars, and then of course the other non-Mario stuff. We have a Mega Man Legacy Collection. We have a Metal Gear Solid 3D here. We have insane Metroid: Samus Returns. You know, the 2D game, the 2D game that followed Metroid Fusion on the GBA. Like, you know, the gap there was insane, man. And then you have the Metroid Prime Private Generation Force, which a lot of people hate because it did not star Samus. You have some like indie games, Paso indie games like Mighty Switch Force and Mighty Switch Force 2. And of course, if you own the new 3DS model, you have a Minecraft there for the new 3DS. You have a Mighty Gunvolt Burst. You have of course Monster Hunter, man, especially Double Cross. Like, we'll talk about that because that's definitely one of our top 10 3DS games. And then you have you have Mutant Mans. In letter N, you remember we have a Nano Assault from the makers of the Nano Stray. We have Nintendogs. We have new Super Mario Bros. 2. Talk about this game, man, because a lot of people hate this game. Yeah, New Super Mario Bros. 2, we have here the Gold Edition. It got a lot of flack from people because we also believe that the DS one was a better version, right? The first one. But the point about this is all about coin collecting, you know, because in the Mario universe, coins were typically just, you know, to give you life and all these things. But here, they made a mechanic all around the coin. You know, you can see like online what's the cumulative coin that you got. Some people like get like millions of coins and stuff. Like for a specific game, you can go like online and see how many coins were certain people got from a certain stage, and then you're like, how did he get this amount of coin from this stage? There must be some secret stuff in here. Still a fun game, you know, but not as good as New Super Mario Bros. 2. But I wouldn't like we didn't flack on it. Like we enjoyed this when we played it, you know. And of course, we won't mention we have Oli Oli. Of course, we're on the letter P now. It contains some of the best, like Professor Layton, the Pokemon series. Of course, we also have here Paper Mario, a Sticker Star is also on the letter P. The Picro series, which we love so much. And then we have the Persona Q, which combine, you know, the characters from P3P, Persona 3 Portable, and P4G, Persona 4 Golden, very good game on the PS Vita, and Persona 3 Portable, very good game on the PSP as well. But we have a Persona Q2, I believe it's like one of the swan song to the 3DS, one of the last big titles that came for the 3DS before Nintendo, you know, let the 3DS go last year, which was like around September 2020 or something like that. We have here the Picro series, we have Pokédex Pro, and of course the Pokemon Picross. You know, it's our favorite Pokemon spin-off game, right? Like, no. Do you think this is better? Because I know we both love pinball. Do you think the Pokemon Picross is better than the Pokemon Pinball on the Game Boy Advance? What do you think? Oh man, that's a tough question because yeah, I really love pinball, but I also love Picross. You know, the puzzle. But I guess I would rank. Man, that is hard. But I guess I would rank Pokemon Pinball a bit higher, but Pokemon Picross is definitely close there, you know. But the thing that edges a bit for the Pokemon in favor of Pokemon Pinball is because Pokemon Picross is a free game, if you remember, and you know we had to apply a patch. We had to hack it basically so that you don't keep on paying, because you need to pay to like there's like a paywall, like you can only play for a limited number of time. You have to recharge this energy, like, you know, like all this mobile game nonsense. You know, we don't want that on our 3DS. So that's the reason why we believe Pokemon Pinball gives a bit it's a bit better. But yeah, Pokemon X-Men. Basically, the 6th generation of Pokemon came here, and in fact, before the Nintendo Switch, remember, this is the only way you can play the entire generation of Pokemon from like the Pokemon Game Boy, because you have here a virtual console, so you can install Game Boy games here, you can install Game Boy Color games here, and so on. and then you have, of course, Pokemon Moon, and then you have Pokemon the second iteration, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and of course, let's not forget our favorite generation, which is the third gen of Pokemon. And in the 3DS, we basically got a Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, which is amazing. You mentioned the Layton series. We have in here Project Prozone. We have some Puyo Puyo games here. And then, so now we are now scouring the rest. So we have, again, you mentioned the Resident Evil. We're now in Retro R. Some amazing RPGs like Radiant Historia. You have Resident Evil, the Mercenaries 3D, but of course we prefer the raid mode, because we basically played the Resident Evil Revelations first. We have here Rayman, you have this insane game, Rusty's Real Deal. And then we also have Rune Factory 4. And then we have Rhythmic, which is you compose some songs in there. You have RPG Maker Fest. You have Rudea Sky Soldier. But talk about this. Wait, before we go into that, Rhythm Heaven Megamix. Let's not forget, because you have Rhythm Heaven Tengoku on the GBA, and then you have Rhythm Tengoku on the GBA, and then you have Rhythm Heaven on the DS. The first time they made it on the West, and then Rhythm Heaven Megamix is like an insane rhythm game as well. We have also Rhythm Thief, another rhythm game. But yeah, let's emphasize this Rusty's Real Deal. What do you think about this? Talk about this game. No, man, like it's nice that you mentioned this, because we never played a game like this before. So it's called Rusty's Real Deal Baseball on the 3DS. So what it is like it's a bunch of mini games related to baseball. Like you practice the stories that like you are like an upcoming guy who's interested in baseball. So you have a bunch of mini games related to baseball. But the weird thing about this game is that there's like DLC involved with real money. Just like the usual modern games that we have. You need to pay. That the whole game's not within the cart that you bought. But what's nice here is you can haggle with the price of, again, we're talking about actual money here, right, for the DLC. So you have this guy Rusty, so he's selling like mini games, like, okay, this $5 real money. The cool thing is you can haggle with this guy. You'll be like, is it really $5? Like, I can give you like something, and then maybe you can drop it down to $3. About 3.10. And then after the haggling, you can make like it really challenges your ability to bargain, because after you bargain it at a certain price, then you pay that certain price. For example, from $5, it could go up to like 50 cents. Then you pay that with the real money, which is insane. If you're rich, you can pay the whole mini games that you want, but that's not the point of the game. The point of the game is you haggle with this guy until you get the lowest price possible. We're in the letter S now. Again, a lot of insane games here. Sakura Samurai, The Art of the Sword. This we also forgot Attack of the Friday Monsters on the letter A. I believe it's the same guy who made this. You have the Sanrio Picross, Scribble Notes Unlimited, which is insane. Sega Classics Collection, Severed, but it's because the touchscreen is resistive, so we play this a lot on the I believe we play this on the PS Vita instead. We have Shantae. Of course, we have the Shin Megami 4 and the Shin Megami 4 Apocalypse, one of the like better like RPGs on the 3DS. It's up there with the Dragon Quest, which we forgot to mention, the letter D, Dragon Quest 7 and 8, and of course the Bravely Default series. You have like, it came here, the Shin Megami Tensei series from the DS, the Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor Overclock. They call it Overclock. Shin Megami Devil Survivor Record Breaker. And the nice thing about this is, if you recall, in the DS1, which we played also when it came out on the DS, it has like a Japanese dub, which is insane. And then classics like Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey. And then you have, of course, our favorite Shovel Knight. We even have, like, you remember we bought the amiibo for this one. You have a Smile Basic, so that you can program some basic stuff. You have a Sonic, a bunch of Sonic games, Sonic All Stars Racing and Transform, some sort of like a Mario Kart 7, but it's a bit buggy on the 3DS, so we play this actually on the Vita. You have Sonic Generations, Sonic Lost World, Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, and then you have like some Spider-Man games. You have the Star Fox 64, which is a bunch of 3D remakes. Which other 3D remakes that we forgot? Let me see, because they began importing 64 games to their handhelds with a DS, with the Super Mario 64. But yeah, I believe on top of Star Fox 64, we have something like, let me see, Ocarina of Time, and of course Majora's Mask are the big hitters. We'll talk about them when we go to the Zelda point. But yeah, those were some of it. But let's continue. You know, at the letter S, we have the SteamWorld Dig Saga, SteamWorld Dig 2, and the SteamWorld Heist, and which is a very insane tactical game. It's sad that we didn't get the new SteamWorld here, the one the card based. So it's now on the Nintendo Switch. Of course, we also have that. But yeah, you have here the Story of Seasons, which we mentioned, an insane turn-based tactical RPG, which is Stella Glow, which is also very nice. I believe this is the last game from the company that made this before they shut down. But yeah, which is sad. Super Mario 3D Land, of course, Super Mario Maker 2, and then you have the Street Fighter 4, one of the first games that we had. And then of course we're in letter T now. You have Taiko no Tatsujin was properly patched by some fans. We have here Tales of the Abyss. We have Tekken 3D Man, which contains the movie as well of the Tekken, which is insane. We have Terraria, which we love, but again, we prefer this on the how do you say this, on the PS Vita, right? It performs better there. But if you have a new 3DS model, then it will run just fine. You remember Ron and Kay were also addicted to these games, right?
I know, man. I remember this, and it's really funny looking at them because you know they had like the old model of the 3DS, and even though the frame rates were very bad, you know, Kaze and us, we were laughing at Ron and Kay during that time because the frame rate was really very bad. But if you play it on a new models, a bit better. Also, Martin Bryle is also a big fan, you know, a huge fan of the Terraria series, but I believe he plays it on the laptop. But anyway, let's proceed. You have Tetris here. You have Alliance Alive. You have Shmup, the Beast of Eden, Binding of Isaac. Man, we'll talk about this later. It's only made for the. It's only made on the, how do you say this? The new. You can play it on the regular. So you have the Great Ace Attorney. Again, this, I believe this is coming on the Nintendo Switch, but there's like a how do you call this, fan translation on the Nintendo 3DS. You have the Legend of the Dark Witch series, which reminds us a lot of Mega Man with the mechanics of Gradius. So remember when you shoot and then like you get a power up and then you decide whether you want to level up now or you want to wait to pick another power up and then later and then level up a later better power, you know. So it's like Mega Man but with a Gradius mechanic. Legend of Legacy related with the Alliance Alive, and of course you mentioned right here the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is a remake of the Nintendo 64 classic as well as the Majora's Mask. And then we have Legend of Zelda A Link Between Worlds, which is basically it's an insane like sequel to the Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. You know that we love this to the Zelda games, right? And in fact, I believe we prefer this better. Like we can finish these games at least ahead, you know, than like Breath of the Wild. We finished like Zelda Link's Awakening remake on the Switch. We haven't even finished Breath of the Wild yet, which is funny.
I know, man. Tell me about it. But I think it's also because the first Zelda that we were able to finish is the Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, which was on the Game Boy Advance, you know, and I believe that's the reason why we have a stronger nostalgia for top-down Zelda games rather than the 3D ones. But of course, Ocarina and Majora's Mask are insane games. We need to play Ocarina, man, again, because I believe we didn't finish it. We were almost done with the game, but then we stopped like somewhere. I don't know why, but yeah. Link Between Worlds, it's a nice because the mechanic is that it's not linear. It's one of the first Zelda games that's not linear because you can go to any dungeon you want and then you just basically rent the items. So you have here other how do you say this, release launch titles, Ghost Recon Shadow Wars. So we have Ultimate NES Remix if you're into you know NES and the family computer and all this stuff. You have VVV, which is the insane indie game, you know, if you know this, and you have Virtuous Last Reward, the sequel to the very insane DS game 999, 9 doors, 9 persons, 9 hours or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's 999. And also on the letter Z, if we jump straight there, we also got the volume 3 of the Zero Escape series, which is of course a Zero Time Dilemma. So it's also on the Nintendo Switch. And one of the later titles, of course, that was insane, even though the Switch was already out, is a WarioWare Gold, you know. But I mean, even when the 3DS is almost dead, it's still kicking out on stuff. Talk about this, man, because this is again one of the insane releases, one of the reasons why you should get a new 3DS XL or the new 3DS model. And this is of course Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. It's not very clear here. Can you get it and then show it on your frame there?
Give that to me, man, because your glare is insane. But yeah, like you mentioned, Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. This is like a remake of a Wii game, a sprawling RPG game, which is insane. Something that we also haven't finished, but it's also on our Nintendo Switch. You remember we even bought the big box limited edition in South Africa, right? We also have that, but I think how should I say this? We still prefer, we want to play it on the 3DS. We prefer to play it on the 3DS because the novelty of a very huge, insane, sprawling world on a tiny screen is very appealing to us. And again, even though the graphics are updated, it's not that bad. It's like a PS1 graphics. So if you enjoy the PS1, it's fine. You also have here the first Yokai Watch trilogy, and then I think there are some other Yokai Watch spin-off titles. Of course, Yoshi's New Island, Yoshi's Woolly World, Yu-Gi-Oh! There are two Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, Yu-Gi-Oh! Saikyo, which has the animated battle monsters, which is insane. We're playing also that on our 2DS right now. And of course, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, which is unfortunately it has no online and stuff like that, but if it's fine with you to play up to like the XYZ mechanic, but if not, if you want to go all the way up to pendulum summoning, then you would go for something like Arc 5 Arc V on the PSP, which is the translated title. And then we're in the Z now, which you mentioned, the Zero Time Dilemma. Okay, so very insane lineup. And of course, like we mentioned before, the 3DS, on top of having an insane library on its own, it can also play DS games, right? I mean, you want to talk about this?
Prior to before we were able to homebrew our 3DS, we usually prefer to play DS games on an actual DS rather than on the 3DS unit, because what it does is the 3DS does this, the aspect ratio of the original DS is not the same as the 3DS, so the 3DS does this weird scaling of the screen, so it looks a bit blurry. But what you can do is, if you're playing DS games, you can hold start or select, and then when you enter the game, it goes into the native resolution of the DS, but it's a bit small. But if you apply homebrew, you have this thing called the TW Patcher and the Twilight. These are like applications. What it does is you can basically apply filters on your DS games. And the coolest thing is, if you remember, the DS has the same screen size at the bottom and the top, right? Whereas the 3DS has a smaller lower screen compared to the top screen. What the TW Patcher does and the Twilight menu is that it basically converts the top screen of the DS into a 16:9 aspect ratio. So it destroys the original aspect ratio, but not too much, because it is still 16:9. So you have this like sort of widescreen experience on your 3DS. So that's why if you recall, we're playing right now the first Inazuma game on our DS. On on top of like some other classic DS titles. Like I believe we're also playing right now the retro game challenge and all these things, right?
Okay, but let's go to the our top 10 3DS games. But actually, so I have the list here. You gave me your iPad, very awesome, with the Apple Pencil. But yeah, before we talk about the top 10 list here, we promise to go over why do we prefer we prefer the handheld as opposed to like PS3, PS4 or something like this, something that you can play on the TV. What made us want handheld games?
So the thing is, we grew up without electricity during like our elementary days. Like the mayor had to install our electricity, but the thing is, even though we didn't have electricity growing up, we had like a circle of friends who had like things like the Game Boy or the PlayStation or the Game Boy Advance. We have friends who basically introduced us to video games as early as elementary. And in fact, even before elementary, when we were growing up back in Manila, we had a neighbor who had a Game Boy. Even then, we always wanted to have a Game Boy, which we got when we were already MS. But yeah, anyway, when we were elementary, the thing is, there was like PS1 was really famous. You have a family computer, and then Game Boy Advance, all these things. We really wanted, because we never had an electricity, we never had a television and all these things. We were more fascinated with this device that can stand on its own, even if you don't have a TV, even if you don't have electricity, because we were thinking, like we were under the impression that we would, go on living without having electricity in our house, basically. But so we had that whenever if this happens, and then of course we also wanted a video game, then we would want something that's only dependent on the battery and dependent on its own screen without any television. So right now the consoles, you can already charge them, but before they were controlled by these batteries. And so even if you don't have electricity, right, so you can just, if you buy a Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, for example, even if you don't have an electricity, and of course by extension you don't have a television, then you can still play Game Boy Advance. You can still buy battery and all these things, and you can play. So that's the reason why even until now we are more fascinated with portable gaming, like the idea that you have this huge world that is condensed in this little handheld, in this little tiny screen. That will always be fascinating to us, man. And again, we had that moment way back when we first held a Game Boy, when we first played our very first video game, which is a Super Mario Land, which we talked about, I believe, 2 Post-Doc Chronicles ago. That's like a video game that you can hold on your hands, and then that you can play anywhere, independent of electricity connection, independent of an external TV. Will always be amazing,
That is awesome, man. But now let's talk about so you give me this list, of your top 10 3DS games. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about these games a little bit. We're gonna flash the title. So what do you want? Do you want me to interview you, or you interviewing me? So that, because the glare on your camera is insane. So maybe if you interview me instead for the top 10, then we can flash the title here so that the audience can see. What do you think? You think you can interview me?
Sure, man, I think that's for the better, because if I flash like the 3DS right here, the glare from the window is very insane. Yeah, so give me that iPad right here, and let me look at this list. This is an insane list. So we should start, I believe, on the top 10. So it says right here that your top 10 favorite 3DS game is the Super Smash Brothers 3DS. Tell me about this game and why it's your top 10.
Sure, so we have it here, the our top 10 favorite 3DS game of all time, Super Mario Brothers 3DS. So the thing is, like we mentioned, we're not into a console game. So prior to this, we never knew about the Super Smash series, Super Smash Melee, Super Smash Brawl on the consoles. We never heard about this. We only heard about this when it was on the 3DS. And yeah, it's one of the games that the Techno friends really played. We never got good into this game. We were always using Mario for some reasons. We mastered some of the basic movesets of Mario. It wouldn't be something, competitive. But yeah, we saw in the beginning, you remember, we forgot to shout out Kei Shirabe, like he's also, this guy's also from Dumaguete. Like there was a point where when John Kevin, when the other K was still on the SP meetings, he would make this a tournament, and then he would Kei Shirabe and I would battle in Super Smash, and then during that time we were still head to head with Kei Shirabe. But now Kei Shirabe is now an insane gamer. He's now doing like official competitions in Smash in the Philippines at least. So shout outs to Kei Shirabe. But even though I'm not good at this game, we still love it, because I mean, right now, even though we have the Super Smash Ultimate on the Nintendo Switch, we prefer to play this here, because we are like collecting. On the Switch you have like these things called the spirits, but in here you have the trophies. We still keep on collecting that, buying it using our play coins. But during that time, it's like insane how much characters you can cramp into a screen this size, and then it's basically a celebration of the different franchises. That's what makes Super Smash good on its own. But being on a handheld, it's insane, man. So it's a very good game right here, Super Smash Brothers for our number 10.
Yeah, I should play some 3DS Smash later. And you remember when we got our PhD in physics, we were supposed to shift from Mario to Dr. Mario, but it didn't happen because there's like a subtle difference between their fight. So we have a call here. We'll cut this video right away, but then we'll come back.
Yeah, that's insane. I remember the Dr. Mario one. Yeah, we should also practice Dr. Mario on the Super Smash Ultimate. But anyway, take that call first, yeah, and then I'm gonna go with number 9 or top 9 favorite 3DS game here. So the nice thing is there's like 2 of us, so you can take that call first, and then number 9 is of course is something that we already talked earlier, Resident Evil Revelations. The reason why we obtained the 3DS in the first place, and we got a bit sad that that when the Resident Evil Revelations 2 was announced, it was like for the consoles, and then it was like released as well on the PS Vita, but it was heavily downgraded, and then eventually both basically came on the Nintendo Switch. But before that, man, this like an insane Resident Evil, very immersive. You remember when we played the demo, it was so so scary, you know, and we really wanted it right away because when we first bought our secondhand 3DS that we mentioned, it didn't have any games in it, only demos, and then one of the demos was basically Resident Evil Revelations. We played it to that, we finished it, and yeah, it's an insane game. I believe we were also able to finish it again on the Nintendo Switch, but historically it's an important in the Resident Evil series because it's one of the, how do you say this? It's one of the games that introduced the walk mechanic while you're aiming. All Resident Evils before that, you know, when you aim, like your character basically stops, right? I believe until Resident Evil 5, like your character stops in its tracks, and so that you can sight, you cannot walk, which is insane. But in here, it's the first time they introduced the mechanic where you can walk while shooting. And initially, we played it, you know, without this second analog, the hub, but using the D-pads, we were used to it because that's basically how we finished you remember PSP also never had the right analog stick, but we were able to finish shooting games like a Siphon Filter in there. We were able to finish Resistance Retribution on the PSP using the face button. So we did the same with the Resident Evil Revelations using the face buttons. Insane game on the 3DS. Also one of the biggest games on the 3DS in terms of, you know, file size. Like it's almost like 4 gigabytes of something like that. And you also remember like when our best friend Mary Ann came to Manila during that time. That was also the time when you were finishing up the game. Like I remember we were eating dinner, you know, with the best friend Mary Ann and fiance, while they were like chatting, you know, they were talking. I remember we were like beating the final boss, you know, on the 3DS, like, yeah, which is insane. Like we were having you know, a dine out with the best friend and the fiance, and then we're like playing the last boss of the Resident Evil Revelation, which is insane. We shouldn't do that next time, you know. But anyway, let's move on to the number 8. Why don't you cue in number 8 right here so that I won't spoil it for you. You cue in like the soundtrack, and then so that people will know what our number 8 3DS game is. It is, of course, Fire Emblem Fates. So our first introduction to Fire Emblem was, of course, Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, right, on the GBA. We love that game. Ephraim, Erica, you know, the diverging path after Chapter 7. That's insane. We played that like, I don't know, like maybe 3 times or something like that. It's an insane game. But, man, the 3DS, the importance about the 3DS is basically revive, you know, the interest of people in the Fire Emblem series. Without the 3DS, I don't know what will happen to the Fire Emblem series right now, but Fire Emblem Awakening, when it came out, people went bananas, you know, to the series as well. And then after Fire Emblem Awakening, of course, they introduced a Fire Emblem Fates. It's a more ambitious. Most people still prefer the Awakening, but this one I love because it has like, there are like a 3 paths. So you have a Fire Emblem Rebirth, Birthright, sorry, yeah, Fire Emblem Birthright, Fire Emblem Conquest, which is like the harder game among the 3, and then there's also the DLC only Fire Emblem Revelations. If you have a Fire Emblem Fates, you have the 3 all in one. So basically, you have like you're burned into this like 2 families. They're claiming that you're our family, you're our family. It's like that is insane. Yes, like a lot of new mechanics. You know, the feet. The feet look better because if you remember in Fire Emblem Awakening, their foot look funny, you know, it look chibi-ish. But in here, they really improve it, you know. That was like a pet peeve for me. But yeah, Fire Emblem Fates, even the fiance loved this game, you know. She was like, she kept on repeating it because when we taught her, you know, the dating mechanic that this person can date this person, she kept on, you know, resetting it because she wants this person to date a specific person. So that's what she was doing. But yeah, it's insane, man. I believe we haven't played Revelations yet, right? I remember finishing Birthright and Conquest. Conquest is insane, I remember. But then Revelations, we should play it like one of these days. We haven't played the third wing of the series. But anyway, yeah, Fire Emblem Fates on number 8 favorite 3DS game of all time. Yeah, man, I remember the fit. Yeah, that's insane. I don't know why they were using that art style, you know. The Fire Emblem was very insane, but I don't know about those fit, man. But Awakening is still a good game, but our personal opinion is, of course, Fire Emblem Fates is the better game. But anyway, let's go to the number 7. This is also one of the games that you should introduce with a theme song. I think people can guess it just with a theme song, right? Okay, so this is number 7. Go, cue in with a theme song. Actually, that's not the theme song. That's like the theme of the first word. The theme song is like, but yeah, we love this game. Like, we finished this. The first time we finished this is on the Nintendo 3DS, but we finished it on the PS Vita. We finished it on our Mac. We finished it on the Nintendo Switch. Like, you know, anywhere that it could be. Like if it is on the oven, we can basically finish it there as well. But it's an insane 8-bit game. You know, the guys have a new game like Cyber Ninja or something like that. Like they have a new game we're playing right now on the Nintendo Switch. But this is insane. We even have like the original cartridge for the Nintendo 3DS, and then we also had the amiibo. We really love this game, man. It reminds us of you know, hardcore 8-bit 2D games, Mega Man, Castlevania, and I think it's very inspired by the duck thing. That's where the, you know, the shovel mechanic comes from, you know. But yeah, it's very insane. If I'm allowed to say it, it's a ground-breaking game. You see what I did there?
Yeah, that was corny, man. You should stop that. But yeah, let's go to the next game right here. But of course, we do love Shovel Knight. Of course, shout outs to the Yacht Club, you know, for developing such an awesome game. But let's go to number 6 now. It's a game that we already talked about. So our top 6 favorite game is none other than, of course, Animal Crossing.
You forgot that subtitle, man. It's Animal Crossing New Leaf. We got so addicted to this game, you know, and like we mentioned a while ago, also with the fiance, it's basically like it's a game where it follows a real-time clock. Like stores are open dependent on the actual hours of the day. You can do anything you want. You can, you know, fish. You can catch insects. You can plant, and you're a mayor of the town. That you can, even though it's just like a sandbox of a town. It got so addicting, man. It's also our first Animal Crossing, right? We tried a little bit Wild World on the DS. It wasn't graphically, it wasn't very impressive. Like it has a very poor frame rate. But New Leaf, man, it's so insane. We got addicted to it, and I believe some of the like techno friends play this as well. I believe John, Kevin, and maybe Ron play this a little bit. But yeah, we were. I can bet that we're like the most addicted, or the most, you know, biggest fan of Animal Crossing and techno friends. But even the fiance is playing this. In fact, the reason why, you know, we're still not playing Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch is because we want to play it, of course, with the fiance when we return back to the Philippines, like in a few months. We'll be playing that. Started with fiance, but yeah, very insane game. And if you want, you can check it out. Yes, on the 3DS, but we advise that, right? It should be, if you're into the Animal Crossing series, you should check the Switch version instead.
I believe we tried a few minutes or a few instances of the Animal Crossing New Horizons because we have the game on our Switch. Remember, like the beginning of the lockdown, if you recall, in our Post the Chronicles, like around March or April, that was like the game that we featured there, right? But yeah, it's an insane game. I agree. But let's move on to our number 5. And again, this is not too surprising to see this on the top 5. It's Super Mario 3D Land.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, so this is one of the games that basically, you know, revive or push the 3DS to its success right now, along with, you know, Mario Kart 7. I believe like during that E3, I think of 2011, it was announced, and yeah, like it's one of the games that also that we really want to have. We're big Mario fans. Super Mario Land is the first ever video game that we ever played back on the Game Boy, and of course it's very fitting that this is in our top 10. You know, we played like it's like a fairly easy game in the first half, but then after you finish the game, in quotations, it opens up a lot of new mechanics. It opens up like a lot of new stuff to do, and if you're a completionist, those second half they're insane, man. And it's also what sold us, you know, to the 3D mechanic of the 3DS, because it's one of the 3DS games with the most beautiful usage of the 3D. Like it's one of the games that yes, you can play it on 2D alone, but it's advisable, you know, to turn the 3D all the way up, man. Like there are like some blocks that looks pasted on the wall if you don't turn on the 3D, but if it's on, man, the designs, the worlds are also designed in such a way like it's like a tiny diorama that you're looking into. Like you can almost put your hand inside, you know, and pick up Mario and all the enemies, man. The Tanuki suit made a comeback, and yeah, it's an insane game. Super Mario 3D World we're still playing because we never had a Wii U, because like we said, we don't do TV only consoles. But yeah, Super Mario 3D World is a good sequel, but Super Mario 3D Lands, basically one of the best 3DS games out there. Do check it out.
We should replay this game someday. I believe the only gripe we had about this game is that it's a 30 frames per second, right? And then we tried to look for like patches that could convert into 60 frames per second on the new 3DS, but it was like we found one, but then it basically multiplied the speed of the game times 2, right? So it's not very playable. So it's still good, 30 frames per second. Mario games like a Super Mario 64 was originally 60 frames per second. Even the remake one on the Super Mario All Stars was 60 FPS, but so it's still fine. But yeah, that's the only gripe. Other than that, a perfect 3DS game. Let's go on to the next one. Something that we of course already mentioned is Pokemon Alpha Sapphire.
Man, the Little Root Town's theme song will always be nostalgic to us, So this is our favorite generation of Pokemon. It's on our favorite console of all time. We're gonna talk about that later, the place of the 3DS in our favorite consoles. But our favorite handheld is basically the Game Boy Advance, because of the story that we mentioned earlier. It's like the first game that the console that we really, really wanted to have, and we got it when we were like in first year college. We even used our, scholarship allowance to buy it. But anyway, don't tell DOST. But yeah, we saw the remake coming, man, on the 3DS. So it used the Pokemon X and Y engine, basically. And man, it's every bit as good still as we remember, the weather mechanic with the Groudon and his, and his Dry Sun or something like that. And then Kyogre with his Heavy Rains. And then the Rayquaza and the Mega Evolutions, which was introduced in X and Y. And then, all the starting Pokemon, our favorite starters, of course, obviously, since third generation is our favorite. Our favorite starting type is always Grass. And of course, our favorite boy is the starting boy is of course Trico, and then when we got the Sceptile Mega Evolution, we basically made a Team Flores around it, because we usually made a team in Pokemon that starts with the letter of our names, so Marvin, because in a Pokemon battles you only have 6 Pokemon, so we made sure that every Pokemon starts with the letter of our name, and we made something like Team Flores, which is around the Mega Sceptile, which is a very weak typing, because it's a Dragon Grass, so it's like 4 times weak to ice, a lot of other weaknesses, but the speed is just insane, man. It's like, I believe our setup was like, I remember the skill of Mega Sceptile was a Lightning Rod, and then if you have like a Thundurus beside it or something like that, and then it was with it's basically an insane team that we made for it. I believe instead of Thundurus, we use something like Raikou, because there's no letter T in a Flores. But yeah, insane game, will always be my favorite generation. Recently, just yesterday, they announced, if we watched it yesterday, the remake of the 4th generation, the Sinnoh. Unfortunately, they're not using the Sword and Shield engine, which is a bit sad, it's a bit weird. But yeah, anyway, it's an insane how do you call this? An insane Pokemon game on the 3DS. So 3DS got some tons of Pokemon games that were made for it. X and Y, this one, and then Sun and Moon, and of course the ramped up version Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. But this will always be dear to our hearts, Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, and of course its counterpart Omega Ruby, our top 4 favorite 3DS game.
Yeah, man, Trico forever, But anyway, let's go to our top 3, and I'm not surprised seeing it here. It's Monster Hunter Double Cross.
So if you remember on the 3DS, we only got Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, which is basically our introduction, to this SP thing, local multiplayer, and then Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, we got it at launch, and then we got Monster Hunter Generations Monster Hunter Generations, yes, MHG on the Nintendo 3DS. Unfortunately, the G rank version of that, which is the Monster Hunter Double Cross, which eventually they made into a Monster Hunter Ultimate, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch, was Japan only. But Monster Hunter fans, they were able to translate it, and we really love this because it's like it's got prior to the upcoming Monster Hunter Rise, which we're very excited for, March 26, man, 2021. This one is like it got all the monsters, aside from just like a few niche ones. It's like got a tons of monsters. You have these arts that you have 4 new arts that you need to master, and then I think, is it 4 or maybe 6, because you have a Brave and Alchemy, the new ones, but I'm not recalling it right now on the top of my head. But basically, we have like 800 hours here, man. You're crazy. Yeah. So we were hunting here, and then the nice thing about the MHXX version is that people were able to, you can apply a patch such that if you go online, you can actually play with people that are playing Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate on the Nintendo Switch. So I think before the release of Monster Hunter Rise, if you go online, you still see people playing, online. And the best thing is that it also has a patch that basically transforms the game into 60 frames per second if you're playing on the new model of the Nintendo 3DS, which is insane because initially, because MH3U, MH4U, the frame rates were unlocked, but Monster Hunter Generations and Monster Hunter Double Cross, the vanilla versions, they are locked at 30 frames per second, even the Nintendo Switch version. But then you can basically apply a patch that unlocks that. It turns into a 60 frames per second monster, which is insane. But yeah, my top 3 favorite game on the Nintendo 3DS right here, Monster Hunter Double Cross. But of course, you forgot to mention that in the initial Monster Hunter 3U, we were like, and I think some of the 4U, we were like dual blades and Switch axe mains. But then after 4U, we basically went into full-on range, so we practiced heavy bowgun, the light bowgun, and then the bow, man. So we had like insane sets there. But of course, let's go to the top 2 now. And of course, this is an insane game. It's Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. Let's talk about it. Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. Man, we got this on launch. Like when it came out, we were like waiting. We're like the only person waiting for this game. We love the Professor Layton series. We love the Phoenix Wright series. Of course, we're a bit favoring Professor Layton as opposed to Phoenix Wright because we played Professor Layton first, and we do love puzzles, logic puzzles and all these things. But Phoenix Wright is a very close to that if you compare the two. They're basically comparable. But yeah, when Capcom and Level 5 teamed up together to make a crossover with Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright, man, when that was announced, my mind was blown, basically. And yeah, like I love this game. This is like one of the games where I want to, like, if there's someone who can make me forget a story, like you take a capsule, like, okay, let me forget a story so that you can just re-experience it again. This will be that game, man. If you can only choose like one game to like re-experience, mine would be Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. Man, it's just so awesome, man. It has like the adventure style, looking for clues, puzzle mechanic of Professor Layton, and then the Phoenix Wright, the court setup. It's so insane, man. So I'm so glad this came out. I'm hoping that there's like a sequel on the Nintendo Switch or something like that. Man, come on, Level 5 Capcom, make it happen. But anyway, yeah. The right now what you're seeing here, the version you're seeing here is actually Japanese dub, because if you buy the cart, I have the cart back in the Philippines, it's just English dub, which is insane. Like the English dub for Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright, they are, as opposed to like your usual RPGs, Japanese RPGs where they sound corny. Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton, they sound fine, but I also have here the English dub right here. So I'm basically playing this again with the English dub enabled, so so that I can hear them with the English. And a fun fact: the English dub, the Japanese dubber, if you know of look, is actually a female Japanese. But anyway, insane game. If you haven't played this, you should check it out. My second favorite 3DS of all time, Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. Now let's go to our top 1. Oh man, now I'm itching to play that again, with the storybook and the medieval setting and the witch trials. Man, Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. But anyway, let's go to number 1 now. So Mario basically is our favorite franchise, right? We never had the Wii U, right? One of the insane when the I believe it was 25th or 30th anniversary of Mario, I can't recall now. When it came out, there's a game that we really wanted to play, but we never had a Wii U. And that game is, of course, Super Mario Maker, right? And so when it was announced on the 3DS, our mind was blown because it's a game that we really wanted to play. And then when it went out to the 3DS, we basically played it to that. So go ahead, show them Super Mario Maker 3DS. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about my favorite all-time 3DS game, Super Mario Maker 3DS for the 3DS. So this got bad reviews. Remember when it came out, like people were like, "Oh, this thing is ugly." Because of course, I don't know why Nintendo this, but the thing is, the crazy thing about this is you can't share the level that you made online. It's insane. You can only share it locally via Street Pass, which is cool. But come on, man, like only a few people went for a Street Pass. But the thing that we love about this game is for example, we have Super Mario Maker 2, right, on the Nintendo Switch, which we also got on the launch day. But the reason why we play Super Mario Maker is we don't make levels, we play existing levels. And so the nice thing is, the existing levels from Wii U, you can actually download them right here. Even though you can't search for them explicitly, it's in here. Man, there are a lot of like mind-blowing 2D levels of Mario. It uses the classic art style, it uses the Mario 3 art style, it uses the Super Mario World art style, as well as the new Super Mario Brothers art style, which is insane. And yeah, there are like a lot of clever, like there are levels where you shouldn't jump, or you shouldn't, man, like the creative ways that people create levels is insane. And again, like we mentioned, we don't make levels on the Super Mario Maker, which is ironic because that's the name. It's a Super Mario Maker. You make levels, but what we do is, the reason why we enjoyed it so much is instead we play existing games. You basically have like an infinite Mario, and it's just because we really love the Mario franchise so much. We really enjoy this a lot, even though it got a very poor reviews because people were comparing it to the Wii U version, even though they didn't review it like as a standalone game. On its own, it's a very good game, especially if you don't mind, if you're into making levels, then I would see the reason why you would hate this, because you would want to share that level to the world. But if not, it's an insane game. But on top of that, we're not even done, because there's like a robust levels that were made by Nintendo itself that is playable right here. It's also something they did on the Super Mario Maker 2. We're still about to finish those levels, right? But they have like tons of levels here that you can play, crafted by the Nintendo themselves. Also very amazing games. And then there are like insane challenges. Like for example, there's like the World 1 of the Mario, and then there's like okay, you can play it, and then after that there's a challenge that comes out. Okay, beat this level in like 20 seconds. Like, oh, how do you do that? It's very insane, man. It's very, very creative. And yeah, this will forever be our favorite 3DS game. And again, it's not a popular choice. The reason is because if we own the Wii U, I believe I for sure this won't be our favorite 3DS games, because again, if we played it on the Wii U, we would have been comparing it to the Wii U. But the thing is, we're in a unique position where we never had a Wii U, and so that's why we can praise this game all we want. But that's it, guys. The top 10 3DS games right here. And yeah, thanks for watching, for sharing the moment with us, these two guys, the same entity right here, talking about their 3DS games. And then finally, before we close, I think you should take this. Let's talk about the place of a 3DS. We've kept on saying this as what is 3DS mean to us in terms of like our favorite handhelds. Where would we place the Nintendo 3DS? Okay, so yeah, Super Mario Maker 3DS is insane, but that's a good question, because initially, my ranking, of course, Game Boy Advance will always hold a special place in our hearts. It will never be toppled, so that's our number one. Prior to that, our ranking is actually something like how do you say this? Game Boy Advance, and then we prefer the Nintendo DS over the PSP. Okay, that's basically like our power ranking. But I'm thinking now of like putting the Nintendo 3DS next to the Game Boy Advance. And yeah, this could be a controversial. And the reason is, if we take, okay, so here's a technical thing. If we don't count the backwards compatibility of the Nintendo 3DS, then our ranking is something like Game Boy Advance, and then we have a Nintendo DS, PSP, and then tied on the fourth place would be Nintendo 3DS and PS Vita. But then if we're not being pedantic, and then we take into the fact that the 3DS technically can play DS game, then since DS is our number 2, I can easily put the 3DS on my number 2 spot. So Game Boy Advance, my favorite handheld console of all time. But yeah, man, Nintendo 3DS, even though it already died, or not really died, because a portable console is never dead as long as some people are still playing it around the world. The Game Boy is never dead, But I should have said, even though Nintendo stopped its production back last year, I believe around September or October 2020, something like that, they didn't even wait, for the 10 years. But yeah, no one was practically buying a 3DS when they introduced the Nintendo Switch Lite. They're basically giving up on that, because the niche that was
previously held by the 3DS lineup was basically taken over by the Switch Lite, you know, a dedicated Switch console that can play Switch games. But yeah, the 3DS, it's a very awesome thank you so much for the memories that you gave us, you gave me, you know, like it will always be a console that will that I hold dear in my hearts. Like introduced me to new friends, you know, in techno friends. It introduced me to a lot of these awesome games, and it's the first, you know, it's the first console that gave us and gave me this feeling of, you know, what it feels like to live in a moment where the console is still supported. Like I mentioned in the beginning, like we mentioned in the beginning, it's the first time it ever happened. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and this is the Ode to 3DS, a 10-year anniversary celebration. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.